Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said, "Man was born free, but he is ensnared in chains everywhere." While his words primarily addressed governmental and religious structures, their resonance extends to our daily lives. Despite being endowed with the power to shape our own reality from birth, we often confine ourselves within self-imposed boundaries. Think about this. The secret to your own freedom is inside you. Your mind has the ability to shape the environment around you, making it a potent instrument. Your world is shaped by every choice you make and every idea you have. Your destiny is under your control. The problem is, though, that a lot of us give up this authority and bind ourselves to cultural norms and society expectations. Tradition compels us to mindlessly follow the pathways blazed by our forebears. It's time to dispel the false sense of constraints. Accept the autonomy to create your own life and choose your own path. Question the status quo. Break with conventional thinking and create a new route. But achieving freedom necessitates more than just intention. It also calls for action. It necessitates a mental rewiring, a change in perspective. You can use mentalism's tenets to tap into your mind's hidden potential and bring your greatest dreams to life. Imagine living a life in which happiness and achievement are actualized, rather than merely passing notions, where each challenge is transformed into a chance for development and each failure serves as a springboard for greatness. Your roadmap to realizing your greatest potential is this training. Enter a realm where your own boundaries are the only things that restrict you. Are you prepared to change the course of your life and lead a truly fulfilled existence? Chapter 1. Peel back the curtains and you'll see the reality of your life. Not to put too fine a point in metaphors, but we can easily live our lives totally encircled by unseen curtains, just as people can easily live their lives wearing invisible chains. The purpose of curtains in a home is to filter out light. It's how you control the amount of natural light that enters your home through your windows. Were you aware that you're treating reality in the same way? But instead of windows, there are mental barriers like particular beliefs and behaviors that prevent you from seeing the outside world. It keeps us from seeing things as they actually are, at the absolute least. The majority of people have mental laziness. I said it there, we genuinely are. To begin with, you tend to make more assumptions as you age. You had to experience things firsthand as a child and then form assumptions based on those experiences or on what other people told you about those experiences. So I can't really blame you for thinking this way. That is a process you must go through in order to have sufficient knowledge to recognize specific patterns. With age comes a wealth of experience from which you may reasonably draw conclusions and more or less make assumptions. You would think that at this stage, it would be safe to believe that once you identify certain patterns, you can pretty much predict the remaining events. In most cases, this makes perfect sense. Knowing full well that there's a good possibility things will go the way they always have, you don't want to wait around for things to fully unfold, but this is only going to go so far. Additionally, as you age, you have a tendency to apply this capacity of assumption in circumstances where it is inappropriate or for which it is not relevant. This is something you can use on people you meet, and it can result in the very harsh and unfair dismissal of people. During a business meeting, I recall that one of the people who was scheduled to give a presentation arrived wearing flip-flops and shorts. I immediately assumed that this person was a slacker in the back of my mind. Is this guy really serious? After giving his presentation, he walked away. It took me a week to discover that someone was in fact a multi-billionaire. Well, so much for my presumptions. It came to pass that we were more in need of him than he was. Clearly, he didn't need our cash. Because of his attire or lack thereof, I believed that he was unprofessional or some kind of loser. See how this operates, do you? Growing older causes you to require less and less information before drawing judgments, which can be highly risky. It's possible that you're shutting yourself out of a plethora of chances and facts. Having unrealistic expectations is another example of mental laziness. This functions somewhat similarly to assumptions. We believe it is reasonable to anticipate particular outcomes in certain circumstances. We believe that we have a right to particular things in some way. This is problematic Because you are less motivated to work toward your goals, the more entitled you feel to particular outcomes. Your likelihood of being open-minded is lower. You're not seeking difficulty. You lose some of your flexibility. It might result in a major mess. Unfortunately, we are the only ones who are at fault. It's very simple to let one's expectations imprison you. Eventually, we may grow to have such a strong sense of entitlement that we refuse to take charge. We believe that we must reach out to the globe. People are perceived as needing to impress us, initiate action, or exert effort. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you, but you will need to take the lead if you want to succeed in this world. It will be necessary for you to add value to other people's lives. It's not as though they owe you notoriety, wealth, or influence. You need to demonstrate your worth. You need to build a reputation for yourself. You must establish your brand. These all require initiative. Everything I've just mentioned has the ability to function as mental drapes. In fact, it would be easier for you to feel stuck the longer you resist pulling aside those drapes. Please realize that the reason you feel mentally trapped isn't because someone is pointing a pistol at your head and telling you to be helpless and miserable. You essentially wind up focused on the tried and true, the known amounts, or the safe areas in your life because you have allowed mental lethargy and all these bad mental habits to overcome you. Anything else is not allowed. Simply put, you can't stand them. You'd like to concentrate on what you believe to be knowledge. It's mental indolence. These serve as drapes to keep out the constructive obstacles necessary for mastering reality. Taking stock of your life is the first step in pulling back the curtain on your existence. Have you ever held a retail position? Immediately following high school, I was employed as temporary personnel to conduct an inventory in a drugstore. I had no idea that the average drugstore carried so much merchandise. I had to count everything, so I saw this personally. It is the purpose of an inventory. Holding a clipboard in one hand and a pen in the other, you are physically counting and sorting products as you browse through various categories and subcategories. There are instances when we need to remove a box and put things away. Frequently, we have to travel to the rear storage area, remove items from boxes, count them, and then count and label the boxes. That's a lot of numbers. That entails extensive tracking and monitoring. That is the operation of an inventory. The same is required of you in terms of your life. It is necessary for you to take stock of your life. Surprisingly, this is more challenging since, rather than counting items like product packaging, medicine bottles, envelopes, and boxes, you will need to make a list of the things you take for granted and the outcomes you anticipate from particular circumstances in your life. You need to be conscious of the circumstances in which you take on particular attitudes and pay attention to your lack of initiative. That's a substantial amount. This calls for a lot of mental effort. It also calls for a great deal of honesty. Let's be honest. Is it satisfying to hear someone call you lazy? When someone tells you that you are living a lie in so many different ways, do you feel queasy? Naturally, no. Even if the majority of people don't want to hear that, if you honestly assessed your life, you would come to that exact conclusion. I can assure you that many of the things you took for granted in your life will turn out to be very different from what you had assumed. They prove to be far from who you had imagined them to be. They might be well known. You may not even be aware of them, but you may be in for a harsh awakening if you begin to lift the layers of your mental blinders and put in the effort to see things as they truly are. Chapter 2. Our lives are intentional. You might be thinking that this chapter's title is not so controversial. You could be pardoned for believing that. Most individuals would concur with this. I beg to differ. Really? Why is that? You may not receive a positive response if you tell someone who is struggling to make ends meet and is down on his luck to put food on the table that he chose that life for himself. You could even take a punch to the face. You have no right to say anything like that. Would anyone who is having difficulties, who is dealing with a variety of situations such as health issues, legal issues, divorce, etc., did mental health difficulties plan for that kind of life? Would they genuinely decide to live that kind of life? Let's talk about being offensive. If you receive a response similar to this, don't be shocked. Nevertheless, this truth remains reality regardless of how others respond to it. It's a difficult pill to swallow, I know. It's important to keep in mind that when someone makes a decision and its effects become apparent, they tend to get extremely inventive in coming up with various defenses, justifications, and reasons to place the blame for the events on other people. Everybody has a hidden talent within them. Even while all of this is painful and unpleasant on many levels, it doesn't change the fact that our lives are deliberate. Why is that? The reason behind our outward environment is our inside universe. Yes, it is correct. In the end, everything about you that is visible to others originates from your internal thought processes. This might include things as superficial as your hairstyle, the clothes you wear, your weight, your complexion, and the condition of your skin. This clarifies if you own or rent your home as well as its size. This is also the reason for the type of vehicle you drive or utilize for transportation. Your inner world also explains your bank account balance, the amount of respect you receive from others, the degrees you own or lack, and a host of other things. These are all internal in nature. This is a very, very sensitive topic for many individuals, because if we all accept that our lives are purposeful and that our internal world produces our outward outcome, it becomes clear that some people made bad decisions at some point in the past. It bothers people to be in error. Individuals dislike being made to feel as though they are to blame for their own mistakes or shortcomings. That is merely a characteristic of people. It is anticipated. It's undoubtedly a severe hit to one's ego. But no matter how painful it is, nothing can change the reality that everything that the outside world sees as a result of your internal decisions. You have to decide in order to obtain the car. You have to make a decision or a set of decisions to land that job that pays a specific salary and allows you to live a particular lifestyle. You have to make decisions on whether to finish high school or obtain that degree. And guess what? They're all internal. They are linked to your principles. Heaven has not established these standards for you. They are not passed down from other people. They did not fall into your lap by accident. These are decisions. Similar to how some people can select values that result in a particular lifestyle and set of outcomes in life, others can select values that have different effects. Again, a lot of individuals are not happy to hear this news. Individuals dislike having to face this reality head-on. Everything in our lives are choices. Do not misunderstand me. There are moments when you react to everything the world throws at you in a way that feels almost instinctive. Don't think that just because you can react a specific manner in predictable ways when you see certain things, that means your conduct is automated. When you make certain decisions, don't deceive yourself into believing that you have no other option. No. Really, all of these habits are the result of decisions. Establishing a new habit takes time. In fact, some estimates place the time frame for forming a new habit or quitting one at 21 to 60 days. It takes repetition of the same pattern to form or break a habit. Before then, what are you doing? Yes, it is correct. It's your decision to do those things. These are options. Your life is deliberate because every decision you make has an impact on certain outcomes. It might not be accepted by you. It might not be cozy. Even if it's undoubtedly not a convenient truth, it nonetheless exists. Accept this reality. Embrace the idea of intentionality rather than running your life in automatic mode. Decide what you want to think about with as much intention as you can to control or write your own life. The foundation of mentalism is this. You edit your reality in this way. That's the process by which you visualize, hear, touch, taste, and smell a given result instead of just thinking about it. Stated differently, you make concepts a reality. You're not merely wishing and hoping. You're not merely imagining how lovely it would be to have certain things. You're genuinely doing something. Chapter 3. Too many of us choose to be blind. Would somebody in their right mind deliberately blind themselves? Not a single individual that I can think of would do that. As you can see, you have a significant competitive edge. You are far ahead of someone who is completely blind, even if you are only able to see with one eye. It's interesting to note that a large number of people desire to be blind in one way or another. I do not mean to imply that one is legally or physically blind. I mean, they have this really significant power that they neglect. You have to realize that in any group of individuals, there will always be a 20% who owns more goods, achieves greater results, has more sex, makes more money, you name it. Whichever way you define success, these 20% will always be at the top. This is the Pareto principle after all. How severe is this disparity? All you have to do is consider the reality that the majority of wealth is owned by a very small percentage of the global population. They did not take everything. They didn't force anyone to give up their weapons by pointing them at their heads. They merited it. Sadly, the overwhelming majority of people are left to struggle with the leftovers. The majority of people are happy to argue over the 20% of crumbs that are left over. These 20% or fewer are completely conscious of their influence. They are aware of their superpower as humans. What am I discussing? We choose to ignore the fact that the decisions we make determine the course of our lives. It could appear insignificant. It may even seem obvious. But as soon as you genuinely feel that the decisions you make determine the course of your life, you will begin to act, think, and speak differently. Whatever it is that is irritating you will eventually stop. That is the significance of decisions. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals decide to ignore this. They operate automatically. They don't deliberate over their actions. They appear to be simply existing through the motions. This is now easily understood on an intellectual level. Saying, "I don't do that," or "I'm going to stop doing that," is also alluring. Congratulations, you're at least moving in the right direction. But this is the issue. This is inherent in the human experience. Yes, it is correct. This is a characteristic of people. Two essential realities about humans remain true at the end of the day. To begin with, we are incredibly afraid of change. We may talk a big game about how much we value innovation and disruption and how much we embrace change, but at the end of the day, we get used to doing things a certain way. There is a pattern to the things we do. The other essential reality about all people is that regardless of their origins or appearance, we usually choose the least difficult route. To put it this way, which would you rather, eating a dish full of delicious German chocolate cake or spending 2 hours digging a hole? This is something that even a rocket scientist can figure out. We rush away from pain, discomfort, or inconvenience and toward convenience, expediency, and pleasure when we choose the route of least resistance. It's simple to understand why individuals eventually start acting automatically when you consider these two realities about the human condition. They ultimately come to certain judgments. It makes no difference what time it is or where they are. They ultimately take identical actions. You are well aware that the decisions we make in life lead to the feeling of being stuck. In the end, we come to reject our ability to choose. Something else has to be the cause. It isn't possible that my life was a choice. No, it's not like that. It's just too much to handle. Not in a manner. Most people perform this kind of internal monologue with themselves. They continue to be unaware of their human superpower as a result. Your capacity for choice is your greatest human strength. It's simple to say, "I know." It sounds natural when spoken. Although most individuals can understand that logically, they don't truly accept it. It's almost like there's something we can all agree upon, but we dismiss it right away. There are always going to be options. You have a choice in how you react to events that are occurring around you at the very least. Decisions can be reversed, as I illustrated with the example of the burning building in the previous chapter. Try to visualize this. Give up on being blind by choice. Chapter 4. The Core of Mentalism. How does mentality benefit you? How can you live the life you've always wanted to live with this funny-sounding concept? As the name suggests, mentalism is all about the mind. You have a very powerful mind, believe it or not. It is the philosophical result of your brain's physical processes. It's outside of and above your brain. Remember that this is more than simply a physical issue. Don't assume that the physical functions of your brain just produce your thoughts. It goes beyond that. The main goal of mentalism is to assist people in realizing the influence of their thoughts on their existence. With that knowledge in mind, mentalism teaches individuals how to alter the one thing in this universe that they have complete control over, enabling them to live the lives they desire. To be clear, you have complete power over one thing, your thoughts. Because mentalism gives you complete power over your ideas, it enables you to live the life you have always desired. By altering your thinking, you can alter your life. Modifications. When viewed this way, mentalism is all about taking control of your life. If you feel dissatisfied, frustrated, or stuck in any part of your life, mentalism can help you make essential changes. You can become happier, more fulfilled, and content with the aid of mentalism. All of this, though, won't be feasible if you don't allow mentalism assist you in achieving one goal that you clearly find difficult. Once more, the fact that you are enrolled in this course indicates that not everything in your life is perfect. It's possible that you are having difficulties in a number of areas of your life. However, in order for mentalism to be helpful, you must be prepared to accept responsibility for your life. This is very important. This implies that you have to stop attributing your problems to other people or uncontrollable external factors. Moving past the past is another aspect of this. I am aware that you might have experienced hardship in the past. Perhaps you are an abuse survivor. Perhaps you've made poor choices in the past and are carrying a grudge. Perhaps there are particular people in your life who foster a poisonous or hostile environment that seriously undermines your motivation and sense of self-worth. Letting go of everything and concentrating on the things under your control is the key to taking ownership. When all is said and done in our life, our ideas are ultimately the only thing we truly have control over. The fundamental tenet of materialism is this: master your thoughts, and you master your life. How mentalism works. In actuality, mentalism is composed of 5 distinct viewpoints. These principles must be your beliefs in order for them to be effective for you. They are listed here in brief order. Principle number 1. All stimuli are neutral. Principle number 2. Change your mental filters. Principle number 3. Change your mental habits. Principle number 4. Change your emotional response habits. Principle number 5. Change your reality through changed actions. Each of these depends on the others and flows into the others. You must accept all of these ideas as true and allow mentalism to function in your life if you want to see the kind of transformation you have been hoping for. This is important because mentalism will not work for you if you don't believe in any of these ideas. It all comes down to thinking ownership after all. Regretfully, if you reject this technique, you will find it extremely difficult to take charge of your ideas because deep down, you think it's a waste of time, that it's all hocus pocus or that it doesn't work. This brings me to a crucial point that may compromise mentalism's efficacy. Chapter 5. All stimuli are neutral. As absurd as it may seem, the world is impartial. I realize it's a little difficult to accept. It appears that your supervisor is biased against you, after all. People seem to just not understand you, and as a result, they say and do all kinds of hurtful things. There are moments when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and feel as though everything is against you. However, there is only one conclusion that can be drawn. If you are totally honest, consider the situation as a whole and have the courage to look past your feelings, the world is neutral. Though it might not seem so, it really is. This is how it operates. Thousands of signals are being picked up by you at all times. You can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell these messages. Put differently, you are gathering all of this information from the outside world with your 5 senses. This occurs once every second. Let me ask you this: are you fully aware of every signal you are detecting? Naturally, no. You are focusing on a very small portion of the information that your mind is capable of processing. It appears as though you are zooming in on a corner while gazing up at the night sky. That is the nature of the mind. We refer to this as perception. All of this is a decision. Although it began as a choice, it may appear habitual because it has very likely become one. Depending on their experiences and background, different people with various mindsets, attitudes, and belief systems choose to notice different things. If you are strolling down the street in a generally safe neighborhood, for example, but you were raised in a rough neighborhood, I can assure you that you are still absorbing stimuli from the outside world in the same manner. People who grew up in that safe neighborhood are probably not going to be paying attention to the notes you compare. Survival and security are your top priorities. See how this operates, do you? Here we are merely discussing perception. We're not even discussing the following phase, which is to assign meaning to these perceived stimuli. You give your stimuli meaning. You assign meaning to these facts when you decide to concentrate on a certain set of stimuli. You not only got to pick what you learned, but you also got to pick how this information was interpreted. Once more, two completely different persons from quite different backgrounds can interpret essentially the same set of stimuli in two completely different ways. This is an option. It's intriguing enough that you get to pick whatever set of data to concentrate on. But it gets even more interesting when you interpret the data in a way that sets you apart from everyone else's analysis of the same data. This is how you think. You have this mindset. This is how you see things. Recognize that these are yours. You did not get these shots into your head. You weren't coerced by anyone to adopt this viewpoint. You made the decision to adopt this style of thinking at some point. Once more, it can appear to be a habit. Because you do this over and over, it could even appear like a personality trait, although it was all a decision at first. I need you to return to that place over and over. You have control over your life if you think you have a choice. You have the same freedom to decide what to do and what not to do, just as you do with particular actions. You choose what you think about. You begin to think about these stimuli now that you have given them significance. What do they signify? In what way do they affect you? What matters most is how they connect to your own story. Please keep in mind that everyone has a personal screenplay with them at all times. I'm not referring to a tangible text that they have to carry from one place to another. I'm referring to the narrative they constantly repeat to themselves. They declare again, "This is who I am. This isn't who I am. This is what took place with me. This is my level of capability. This is my destination. This is what I've accomplished," and so on. This is the script that you wrote. Everyone possesses one. We refer to it as your identity. There is a narrative and then a script when you dissect that identity. You add what you choose to recall about that specific event to your script when you decide to pay attention to certain things instead of other things and to give them one set of meanings instead of another. I hope it is quite evident to you that in spite of everything that is going on, you are in complete control. What you become aware of is entirely up to you. The meaning you assign to the stimuli you have chosen to become aware of is entirely up to you. You have a choice in what you consider. That is an abundance of options. I realize it appears intimidating, particularly if you think you have no other option. Given that you feel as though your life is a lousy movie and you are locked in it, realizing this might be pretty frustrating. All I'm asking is that you continue to emphasize these many decision points in order to emphasize that you are always in control. In the past, this was accurate. This still holds true now. In the future, this will still be the case. You're always in control. Because of this, I can confidently state the following startling conclusion. You are in charge at all times. Your thoughts determine everything about you, including the things you talk about, the things you think about on a regular basis, and, most importantly, the things you decide to do. Everything stems from your perspective. They are all a result of the mental filter you decided to put in place. Control is this. I am aware that not many people like this response, though it would be wonderful if happiness or enlightenment could be contained in a capsule or tablet. Things currently stand as they are. The environment is impartial. Your mind is the one that gives it color and form. Never forget this fact of life. Everything gets so much easier if you've accepted this wholeheartedly. This truth leads to the other 4 principles of materialism. Recognize that the stimuli in the world are neutral. If you can genuinely believe it, then advancement is achievable. You'll be stranded if you are unable to. Your old, pessimistic beliefs about yourself as a victim will constantly find their way back to you. It is necessary for you to think of all stimuli as neutral. There can be no mental advancement without this underlying conviction. Chapter 6. Change your mental filter. This chapter explains a critical phase in the practice of mentalism. The easiest aspect is really accepting that the environment and its stimuli are essentially neutral, as tough as that may be for many. It's the easiest part in the grand scheme of things, but it's extremely vital, and no progress can be made if you can't go past that stage. Beyond that point, everything takes a great deal of work. I'm not suggesting that you have to get sweaty and roll up your sleeves for this. This isn't a labor-intensive task. This is something far more challenging, though. It may surprise you to learn that people find it simpler to behave physically than to act mentally. You're going to encounter more resistance when you act mentally. Why? You will be thinking differently than you usually do. You will need to face and get rid of your thinking patterns. You will need to address your attitude. This is the reason why many find it so challenging to adjust their mental filter. As the expression goes, you can remove a child from the country, but you cannot remove a child from the country. You can now combine various elements to create the words kid and nation, but it's up to you if the results will be the same. We are the result of our history, our surroundings, and our upbringing. These combine with the decisions we make to create our mental filter. Please be aware that it's really difficult to remove this truth from your mind. How does your mental filter affect your life? It's all a matter of interpretation. Short interpretations result from the fact that the stimuli we get are essentially neutral, and we choose to focus on some facts rather than others. Certain interpretations are more likely to be supported by these particular facts. As if that weren't awful enough, we next consider what we decide to focus on and select from a variety of possible interpretations. At this point, you might be thinking, it's not that complicated. No, it's not. This isn't merely something you're thinking. It's not just something we can brush off and say, everyone looks at things differently and they all lead to the same place, though that would be too easy. No, it doesn't. Because you have chosen to interpret in a particular way what you choose to pay attention to. Emotional states result from this. Please be aware that there is never an emotionally neutral reading. They always carry a heavy emotional cost. It might not include any drama. There is an emotional component, even though it may not include a strong feeling. Apathy or lack of concern is an emotional state, despite popular belief. What happens next, whether you like it or not, and regardless of whether you are aware of it, affects how you talk and behave now that your interpretation has set off this emotional state. It affects your focus as well. People around you begin to listen to you when you start speaking in a particular way, and this influences them. More crucially, when you behave in a particular manner because you believe that circumstances call for it. You are not the only one who can do these things. This is the moment when your reality is altered by your ideas. Let's be clear about one thing. The sentiments you have are meaningless to the world. It doesn't actually. It doesn't give a damn about your objectives, theories, reasons, or anything else if you simply hold them in your mind. Even when you convey them in a more sentimental way, most likely nothing would change for the planet. Now, there's a considerable probability that if you actually publicize this knowledge, you would have a significant influence, and a lot of people were interested in it. However, your objectives and feelings generally have no effect on the outside world, but everyone on the planet has to sit up and take notice. Your actions begin to affect the people and things around you when you allow your emotional state to control how you behave. At that moment, you start altering your reality. When you begin to alter your surroundings, the outside world is forced to respond. That's how we manipulate reality. And our ideas and mental filters are where it all starts. Simply altering the method at each stage will result in a modification of the actions you do. You can transform your life by altering your routine behaviors. This is the mechanism of mentalism. It all comes down to fully accepting responsibility for your mental filter. Choosing an empowering filter. When you read about specific circumstances in your life, whether they are current events or ones that have happened in the past, never forget that you are in control of your filter. Always remember that there is at least one empowering filter. It won't, at the absolute least, make you feel helpless, little, and submissive. Locate that filter. Consider a situation from a perspective that keeps you in charge. You'll constantly tell yourself that if you're feeling down, it's because you've made that decision. If I feel little, helpless, and weak, it's because I've made that decision to feel that way. And the more times you return to that quote's affirmative message, that is the reason that quote was my choice, you're doing things appropriately. The path you are on is correct. Why? Because you've made the decision to reveal your superpower to others. Your own free will is all the power you require in this life. Your ability to make decisions. Your reality is shaped by this. This is what creates for you a whole new or universal universe of possibilities. Even at 50 years old, you are not your history. You're able to return to your studies. Even if you've previously suffered physical abuse, including bruises and beatings, you can still undergo retraining. Relationships can still be improved. You have an option. You have complete control over all of this. You must so continually be returning to the authority of your own choosing. You will never come to a more powerful realization than this one. Make use of this as the foundation for all filters. You make the decision to craft for yourself and to be conscious of it. Chapter 7. Change your mental habits. I am aware that we performed a good deal of hard lifting in Chapter 6. Trust me. For me, it's quite difficult to take in everything that is covered in Chapter 6. Still, it's utterly essential. Now, if you thought Chapter 6 was tough, you might find Chapter 7 to be really challenging. Why is that? Okay. Realizing the significance of our mental filters and their profound influence on our thoughts, words, emotions, and behaviors is one thing. Assuming command of the entire undertaking, it can be really difficult. This is because as we age, we come to believe that there is essentially just one way for us to act. We can only react to the world in one manner. Of course, this is an illusion, as I have previously stated. You are never without options. In fact, there are numerous precise and distinct places in the process where you can intervene and take charge of the circumstance if you trace it out from your thoughts or perceptions to your actions. Your decisions in these discrete areas have the power to significantly alter how your scenario turns out. Analyze this from an emotional perspective. That's correct. Despite how depressing, hopeless, and gloomy these earlier sections may have seemed, it is still possible to have a happy ending. The issue is that accepting this on an intellectual level is simpler than really. It is often said that even the most brilliant concepts that make perfect sense to you intellectually will not benefit you in your day-to-day practical existence until they touch your heart. Even though most individuals would rather deny it, humans are emotional beings. I'm aware that this is particularly true in the US, where values such as logic and rationality are held in high regard. However, the majority of people actually make spontaneous decisions, per a recent study. Yes, it is correct. When it comes to making decisions, whether it be buying a product, choosing a partner, selecting a school, selecting a course, or going on a job interview, they let their emotions to rule them. Name it. We frequently act on impulse. The study's intriguing aspect now is that participants were allotted study time to examine the subjects before being asked to justify their decisions. They provided a plethora of explanations for their supposedly reasoned and logical conclusions. To put it another way, they decided on the spur of the moment. When they discovered the cause, they mentioned it since it demonstrates the effectiveness of automatic thinking. Do you really believe that the individuals who made those snap selections understood exactly how their logic worked and what the various chances were that their choice would come to pass? Naturally, no. It is not how most individuals make decisions. Rather, they allow their emotions to control them, which results in automatic reactions. Stated differently, their decisions were determined by their cognitive patterns. Should you choose to engage in mentalism and allow it to genuinely elevate your life to new heights, you must alter your thought patterns. It's actually very easy to do. Alter your habits, and your life will change. Nothing is more fundamental than that. Remember that this is a two-way street. You have the power to alter your life for the better or worse. However, the fundamental mechanism is still the same. It all comes down to altering your thought patterns. How do your mental habits work? prompt specific feelings, words and actions from us. As I indicated in the previous chapter, we view the world and reality as neutral, but our mental filters only take into account a single set of information, and we have a particular interpretation of this data. This consequently results in emotional states that our world changes as a result of our actions. That is the way habits function. Therefore, we are unable to stop ourselves when we develop a pattern of absorbing particular elements from the outside world, especially when this sets off a predictable series of events. In fact, one of the first things people will say when you call them out on this is that they can't help but this is who they are. No, it's not. It's not who you are. This is not ingrained in your identity. This isn't ingrained in your fundamental identity as a person or human. This is modifiable. All of this is again a result of a number of decisions. It doesn't make these decision points go away that we choose to accept the reality that we choose to disregard them. Options remain. You can notice the influence of mental habits by the seeming speed at which this process moves along. It seems to happen in an instant. You must alter your thought patterns if you wish to transform your life. Possibly, the first step in doing this is to dissect how habits function. Habits deconstructed. So what is a routine behavior? Don't get too thrilled just yet. Once more, the behavior is predictable or nearly instinctive. Don't get giddy about action just yet. In reality, this implies more than just deeds. It may also activate emotional states and mental processes. These are not only mental habits, but also bodily ones. Having stated that there are three components to the habit process, the reward, the usual action, and the trigger are all present. Those who smoke, for instance. Individuals who smoke are actually prompted to pull out a cancer stick, and they smoke because they feel rewarded. For instance, many smokers get into the habit of lighting up right after a large meal. The trigger is that they recently had a meal. Additionally, the nicotine rush that is produced in their circulation as a result of blood vessel constriction causes a mental surge when they smoke cigarettes. Smokers view this psychological high as beneficial. It is their compensation. What they are aiming for is this physical reality caused by hypertension. Observe how this transpires rapidly in the IT industry. If you smoked, you would get this crazy need to light up just after a large meal. Why is that? You've identified the trigger. You're thinking about that satisfying high you get from smoking in the back of your mind. It's a fantastic post-meal experience. The more times you repeat this, the more the reward is linked to the trigger. So you light up and receive the reward. It gets so linked, in fact, that you stop thinking about it. All you have to do is recognize that trigger. The same holds true for our minds. Our mental routines necessitate ideas or visuals, and we receive a reward when we act on these thoughts consistently, which frequently manifests as emotional reactions or mental interpretations. The prize is consistently the same. It's not a feeling state. For example, many individuals would automatically think, "I'm so glad that person is no longer in my life," if they remembered an ex-boyfriend who used to hit or smack them around. Additionally, you have a sense of emotional relief since you are now with someone else. You don't think that your current relationship could still be following that same pattern. Rather, all you can think of is how relieved you are that this person you used to know, the one who gave you the finger, and who now doesn't exist. The satisfaction that comes from letting go is the prize. That's how mental habits function. Is it the case that your mental patterns serve you rather than against you? If you wish to alter your mental habits, you must ask yourself this important question. Persuading people to make significant life adjustments will be extremely difficult. If everyone concentrates on the how and what, the why must likewise be our main concern. To do this, ask yourself if your mental routines are effective for you. Do they make my life better? Can I live the life I desire for myself now because of them? Do they bring me joy, or do they make me feel content, whole and fulfilled? If not, we must modify our habits to suit our needs. This is the point at which many people are lost, because many people just do not believe, even though it is simple to follow up to this point. This should be rather simple if you genuinely think that you have the ability to select the thoughts that you think. Your mental patterns can be used to your advantage. The bad news is that you truly are unable to alter your triggers or rewards before we discuss the good news. The extremely aggressive ex-boyfriend served as the catalyst. It is truly unchangeable. It is certain to occur. The reason those images will resurface in your mind is that you once knew that individual. Unless, of course, you suffer a concussion and lose your memory, those recollections will never fade. There is no getting away from this fact. You had that person in your life. Move on, recognize that. Thus, the trigger won't disappear. Habitual mental activity. This also holds true for you. Here, all that's needed is a feeling of relief that you've moved on or found someone new. Recognize that the incentives and triggers will remain the same. What's lacking now? Okay, so you're here. The idea is to claim the same reward, but come up with a different response to the mental trigger. It may surprise you to learn that there are alternatives to smoking cigarettes that will still give you a pleasant high. For instance, if waking up in the morning is your trigger, your natural inclination might be to light up. What if you replaced lighting up with a leisurely stroll, or even better, a brisk block jog? You still arrive at the same satisfying conclusion. But this time, endorphins rather than nicotine are what give you the rush. You do, however, experience additional advantages. Because you have switched from smoking to running as your physical habit. You reduce your weight. You appear more attractive. Your brain receives extra oxygen, which strengthens your willpower and sharpens your mental focus. The entire 9 yards and all that was required was a modification of your routine action that sets off the same outcome and reward. Recognize how this operates since, in terms of your mental habits, you must also do the same. Chapter 8. Change your emotional response habits. This is most likely the most difficult aspect of mentalism. You have to realize that everything is up in the air when human emotions are involved. Really? People invent all kinds of plausible-sounding explanations for the snap decisions they initially made, as I have noted in a previous chapter. Consider that. Individuals make decisions based on emotional triggers, yet when questioned about them, they usually come up with something seeming sensible. That's how a lot of people handle their feelings, I guess. Although most individuals would rather deny it, everyone has a trigger, and when our emotions are aroused, we react in a pretty predictable manner. People often believe that this is just a natural part of who they are. To just attribute everything to our personalities would be far too simple. However, it's not actually that difficult. What could go wrong? Let your emotions run wild, and you could end up flying off the handle saying something you'll later regret, or worse, doing something that could damage your relationships, hurt yourself, or get you into legal trouble. When you allow your emotions to rule your behavior, you run the risk of opening a can of worms. Pick better emotional responses. You have the ability to modify your response to triggers, as I have already discussed in this training. This is the essence of mentalism. You don't have to lose your mind. It's not necessary for you to cry. You don't have to believe that everything is lost. It's not necessary for you to feel helpless, little, and weak. There exist alternative, effective reactions. In the circumstances, they could be far superior. Making a conscious effort to accomplish this is the best approach. What kind of mental state am I trying to achieve in terms of my emotional reactions? Put differently, don't get hung up on the method. Instead, concentrate on the result. Typical favorable emotional reactions to triggers include the following. A sense of being in control. Rather than allowing your anger to spiral out of control and affect the person or people you are furious with, try identifying the trigger and using that information to your advantage. It feels so powerful to feel like this. I promise you there's nothing more uplifting than being the only one with enough common sense to see the bigger picture among a crowd of people who all appear to have lost their minds. In that specific situation, your chances of success are far greater than if you let yourself become enmeshed in everyone else's bad emotional condition. Additionally, you can see the big picture and recognize possibilities that many people far too frequently ignore or reject when you feel in control of the situation. A sense of possibility. Having a sense of possibility is another way to react emotionally to triggers. Try to maintain an attitude of potential, rather than instinctively believing that everything is hopeless, that there is nothing you can do, that you've seen this before and that it will all end in failure, grief and misery. Put differently, rather than waiting for the door to close, pay particular attention to what kinds of windows and doors the circumstances allow to open. Though it's not always evident, you may gradually teach yourself to recognize the chances that most people miss if you concentrate on eliciting the emotional response of feeling a sense of possibility. Everybody is engrossed in the now. Many of them allowed their feelings to control them. However, you are now aware of the possibilities, and this could result in better outcomes for you. Why? It would be quite desirable for folks to speak with someone like you. You may be the one to work with others to create a win-win scenario when everyone else perceives it as a win-lose or even a lose-lose one. You suddenly get a lot of popularity. A sense of adventure. Many people believe that facing problems means going through a difficult period of trial. They become quite serious and gloomy. Some people become really depressed. If your trigger typically made you feel depressed or really serious, then why not replace it with an adventurous spirit? The issue with viewing obstacles as a call to intense, calm and focused concentration is that it takes away all the joy of conquering them. You have to realize that obstacles are just riddles. They are exactly that. There's a sense of adventure in playing puzzles, trivia and strategy games, which is another reason why so many people enjoy them. It's essentially up to you to make sense of everything that would otherwise be chaotic and perplexing, because there are a lot of unknowns and certain things that you do know. Many people immediately shrink or run away from this, but when your sense of adventure is piqued, it can be a really powerful emotion. Rather than retreating instinctively, you're the first to put on some rubber boots and give it a shot. Connect your trigger to these emotional and mental states. Although it won't be simple at first, the more you work at it, the more likely you are to succeed in improving your circumstances. Allow certain triggers to place you in a state of flow, rather than allowing them to bring out the worst in you. Chapter 9. Change your reality through changed actions. As I've said before, your feelings are meaningless to the rest of the world. It only gives a damn about what you do. When you consider that the majority of people are not mind readers, this makes perfect sense. In addition, there are excellent intentions paving the path to hell. People are primarily interested in the outcome, regardless of your motivations or the goodness of your goals. In reality, what did you do? This is where the mentalism chain starts to pay off. In the past, your heart and the area between your ears were where a lot of the action took place. These are crucial. Let's not sugarcoat the truth, though. The fruits of life are all essentially determined by your actions. Are you able to perform the job? Are you an expert in your field? Are you able to generate outcomes? That's the main point. Furthermore, there isn't much lying going on here because, when you think about it, everything is clear-cut. It can be turned on or off, either yes or no. It is very dichotomous. Sadly, a lot of people are willing to coast through life, believing that their past failures, sad experiences and unmet dreams will carry over into the present. They believe that no matter how hard they try or what kind of improvements they wish to make, nothing seems to change in terms of their behaviors, thus they have essentially given up on themselves. The secret to actions. You may not realize it, yet your behavior is automatic. Your ingrained interpretation of stimuli and emotional states influence the decisions you tend to make. These are the result of habits. Triggers, ingrained thought patterns, and reinforcement are all involved. Even though it seems self-serving now, they were still picked. You kept picking them in the past, which is why they turned into a habit now. They were the ones you first selected, and you continued saying them. They appear to be automatic now. In fact, it may appear as though they are ingrained in your psyche or are simply a part of who you are. You may even believe that they are immutable or that they are inextricably linked to your identity. However, these are merely justifications you make for yourself because you know what? You're more malleable than you think. If you truly want to, you can make a change. And even though I am aware that it is extremely tough to change course during the mentalist sequence's action portion, it is still possible. Since you have the most power over that aspect, it is ideal for you to alter your thinking. It's the component with the fewest moving parts. Attempting to alter your behavior at the action level is like attempting to halt a freight train once it has accelerated. While not quite unachievable, it is also not simple. Once more, I want you to realize the empowering fact that your behaviors are habitual, because you made the decision to do them in the beginning, regardless of how instinctive and hardwired they may appear to be. Give your capacity to choose priority. Change your habitual actions, and you change your life. To put it another way, your financial problems are most likely the result of specific financial behaviors. You have greater expenses than income. Do you use your credit card for everything? Do you purchase a variety of unnecessary trinkets? It is solely your responsibility to take responsibility for yourself. Now, alter your routine behavior rather than wallow in self-pity or, worse yet, portray oneself as a victim. You might want to cut back on eating out rather than reaching for the plastic every time. You may choose to substitute free activities with more costly ones. You could prefer to go running or to the park instead of the movie theater. Superior. I realize that this may sound really trivial, even like common sense, yet these things actually exist. These might not seem like much, but they build up to make your habits and attitudes shift, which alters your behavior permanently. The emotional experiences you experience and the physical behaviors you adopt need to be separated. You can either modify your intended emotional state to achieve better results, or you can alter your physical behavior in spite of your emotional condition. Regardless of the situation, something has to give. When you are provoked, you don't have to react in the same way as before. You have an alternative course of action. The secret to success. Do you believe that people who are really successful never feel angry? Do you believe they are not sexually tempted? Naturally, they do. They are people just like you and me. But their sincerity in action is what makes them effective. Integrity actually entails operating in a way that is consistent with your character and ideals. Yes, it's really simple to just use this shortcut whenever possible. It's simple to avoid any and all of your responsibilities, duties, and obligations. Ultimately, as I have often stated throughout this course, choosing the route of least resistance is an essential aspect of being human. However, the reason successful people succeed is precisely because they made the decision to behave honorably. Stated differently, they made a choice about the values and character of the person they wanted to be, and then they allowed that decision to guide their physical choices. They are no longer prisoners to their circumstances as a result. They also find it in themselves to respond politely, dignifiedly, and with class, regardless of how the world slaps, spits, or mistreats them. While maintaining integrity in daily life may not always be simple, think of it as analogous to working out at the gym. Your muscles loathed you when you first touched the weights. It had a murderous feeling to it. You were really hurting. However, your muscles develop stronger and stronger as a result of constant challenge, and when you reach a point when the weight you're using is no longer difficult, you can increase the weight. Perhaps you add 10 or 20 pounds, at which point the same thing happens. However, the pain decreases with each scaling up. You become more adept at adapting quickly. Success is no different. It would initially appear somewhat unusual to live an honorable life. It would be like though you were a fish out of water. However, the longer you persist, the more you resemble the persona you have been concentrating on. Recall that while success is a decision, habits are its foundation. Conclusion. Living as a mentalist is not an easy life. On the other hand, it is the life for you if you want one filled with opportunity and strength. The fact that mentalism doesn't require a particular machine is its best feature. You don't require any medicines. There is no need for costly therapists. It's not necessary to embark on a protracted, mystical quest. Rather, you embark on a self-exploration and concentrate on your internal world. Mentalism empowers you to live a more powerful life by dealing with this inner reality rather than ignoring it, running from it, or finding an excuse. You can overcome any challenges and issues you are now facing by asserting your ability to make choices. I hope you experience the utmost happiness, joy, and contentment